What's good, Ken Gonda? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson, back at it again with another interview here on this channel. I know y'all been hating on my hat. Look, I like the Grinch. Stop being mad until you pay my bills. Don't tell me what to wear. But guys, everybody else, subscribe at the bell. Today we have a very great up and coming YouTuber in this space. She's been on the platform, I think, less than a year. And I'll let her introduce herself, who she is, and what her name of her channel is.
So hi guys, my name is Crystal Bell Smith and my channel name is Chris Logic. It's spelled C-R-Y-S, Logic, L-O-G-I-C. And basically on my channel, I discuss Black economics, Black politics, dating advice for young Black women. I cover topics like the diaspora war. I expose these dusties, and really whatever the people want to see. So yes, definitely subscribe to my channel and go check me out.
All right, and you definitely do have some interesting content. And I saw you, in my I think on my other channel,
comment section,
comment section, and then I ended up clicking on it, and I saw that you had a channel, and then I came across this video that we're going to show in the background, and it was a video that was the truth about why Africans hate African Americans and my experience with African Americans. Now, let me just ask you this, because when I talk to, I'm listening to you talk right now. If I were to see you on the street, I'm like, oh yeah, she one of our people. Like, what are you? Where are you from?
Okay, so I'm Liberian, right? I'm Liberian, and my mom, she's Ghanaian, right? So she's Ghanaian. My dad, he's Liberian, but he's Americo-Liberian. We call them like the Congo people. But basically what that means is he was, an enslaved African, came to America and everything on the slave ship. And then they actually were the group of Africans who actually went back to Africa. What was that guy's name, that politician? Marcus Garvey?
Marcus Garvey, yeah. Yeah,
and ended up going back to Africa and basically trying to create something like for themselves, right? For their own people. So Americo-Liberian, that's my father, and my mom's Ghanaian.
Okay. So were you born? So were you born in America or in Liberia?
I was actually born in Liberia. I was born in Liberia, and I came to America when I was 6 years old.
So you were born in was it Monrovia?
Yeah, I was Monrovia, Liberia, and then we moved to Ghana, and we basically stayed in Ghana for the rest of the time, and then we were able to come to America when I was 6. My father actually came first, and then me and my mom followed.
Was that have anything to do with the war? I know a lot of Liberians ended up in Ghana displaced. Okay.
Exactly. We were displaced because of the war.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now when you came to America, I mean, obviously did you have like that Liberian accent that like very thick?
I did. It was super thick and everything, but they like schooled it out of me. I took classes for LSA or ESA or whatever it's called, but they basically get rid of the accent. They teach you how to talk real white, real American, real proper. So I took those classes. Okay.
Now you moved to America, presumably. I mean, we don't want to give you, but you were on the East Coast, down south, or?
No, so when I first came to America, we came right to the East Coast. We were in when we first came here, I believe we were in like Upper Darby area, and that's where we like remained until I was about 12, 13. I think I was like around 12, where I was going into middle school and stuff, and we moved to Philadelphia. I stayed in Philadelphia until I was the age South Philly, until I was the age of 18, going into college, and then I went off, still in Pennsylvania, to Penn State, and now I'm in Jersey.
Yeah, and that's a lot of Liberians in Philadelphia. I know that for sure.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah.
A lot of in Maryland, DC, Philadelphia. Let me ask you this, because the video talks about, because so many times we hear about African Americans, issues with the African community in America, but I want to give the opportunity for somebody that came to America like yourself as an African immigrant, and you have obviously insider knowledge. Why? What were some of the things that you experienced, or a lot of other Africans experienced, that could potentially as to why they dislike African Americans in the United States?
So basically, like I mentioned previously, when I first moved to America, I was in like the Upper Darby area, right? So when I went to school in that area, I went to a very diverse school where you had white children, you had Black children. It wasn't really a lot of us Black kids, but you had Black children, Spanish kids, Asian kids, but it was predominantly like Indian and white children and Asian kids, right? That was that type of school. I had such a nice experience, pleasant experience. I had so many friends, never got into any fights, nothing, none of that. It was great. And I'm super proud of being African because my dad is super proud of being African. So I say it all the time, right? You know how the teacher will always be like, what's the number one thing that you're proud of, right? I'd be like, I'm African. I'm pretty proud of that. I'm African, right? Um, so I would always talk about it. And I felt like my response in that environment was completely different, in contrast to when I was about 12 and I ended up moving to South Philly. Now, in middle school, I went to an all Black American school. It was barely any Spanish kids. It was just all Black American. And it was very uncool to say that you were African, to eat African food, to, you know, bring up anything about Africa. If anything, they would want to call you names, call you African booty scratcher, or just straight up tell you you're lying because, you know, you don't look African, or African people are super dark, or da 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 da. Or, well, if you're African, your people must have lived in huts and they were barefoot and da 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 da. So I just heard all types of like ignorant things, you know, like I said, constantly people would tell me I'm like lying. When my mom would come to PTA meetings, they would like say things about her accent. So I just had a really terrible experience in middle school being an African woman. And the thing about me is I'm not the one to get bullied. I have a huge mouth on me, right? So it would lead to a lot of physical altercations with a lot of African American women, which as I've gotten older, that's definitely calmed down. And I have a lot of close African American female friends and everything like that. But I feel like that's really where a lot of the strife comes from on our part, because we feel very disrespected when we come here. Like we hear this narrative that Africans think they're so much better than African American people. But no, that's not true. From my personal experience, my mother didn't think she was better. My father didn't think she was better. But every time she would open her mouth with her accent, she would get some type of form of disrespect, right? Or someone would want to make a mockery out of her and out of our culture. And I'm looking at their Black ass like, I know you're not talking. Don't you know that African American, what's the word before American? African, sir. So you trying to mock my culture. My culture is your culture, stupid. Right? And I would be the first person to say that. And then when it go back and forth with me. And that's just really a lot of where my tension came from. As well as, you know, people would say, oh, you know, what do you mix with? And then you would just be like, oh, I'm African. They'd be like, well, I'm not African. I'd be like, but what, you know, what are you then if you're not African? Oh, well, I'm this, I'm Native American. I had a girl tell me she was Scottish. What? Oh, Shay. Oh, she told me she was from Scotland. I said, okay. And I'm just like, so maybe it's a thing where African American people have been so brainwashed. They don't want to identify with Africa. They don't want to accept their culture. And maybe they feel like we sold them into slavery. I didn't know what that was growing up, but I just felt very attacked from the African American community.
Even though, I mean, your dad's American-Liberian, that's
and my stepdad, and my stepdad's
right.
actually African American. My siblings are African American because we're half African, half American. Yeah.
Okay, but your father is pretty much a branch of the African American tree because he was, you know, with us. Yeah. So okay. So let me ask you this, because I've heard similar things. One of my good friends that I attended medical school with, he graduated last year, but he's from Ivory Coast, and he says very similar things. That, you know, that he was trying to integrate into the Black community, and it was hard. But you know what? And not to discredit what you're saying, because I know it's true. But some people will say, "Well, man, you're like," and I'm a dark skinned person. You know, I got called African booty scratcher. Also, I got called names. I got, you know, taunted also. But some people will say, "Well, that's just African Americans' way of just talking and just busting. They don't really mean anything by that." What would you like? But on the other side, how does that make? How do you feel about that? You know, when you look back at it, is it, you know, what did you think?
But you have to understand, when you're coming from a different culture, you don't know that's African American people's way of doing things. You come here and you see that other people don't behave like that, and you see that African American people are behaving like that, and you're just like, okay, well then these aren't the people I need to associate myself with. I need to take a step back because I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be belittled as culture. That's not fun to me. Yeah.
So, you know, let me kind of go back to this thing, because obviously a lot of the, you know, even on my main channel, a lot of the African brothers that I know are some of the Caribbean brothers and people that I know. Like, if you look for some of the things in medicine, engineering, those people that are Black that are dominating those realms, typically not African American. Here and there you might have them, but, you know, a lot of Africans are successful in the United States, especially with the ones from West Africa. And a lot of times they take the, you know, some jabs of like, aha, like, look at us now. You know, y'all over there still talking. look at us, we're doing very well.
Mhm.
Do you think that there is a specific reason why a lot of West Africans do so well in the United States
I
in
think
comparison to other groups?
I think it's just the drive. I feel like I don't like it when Africans talk mess and they're like, "Oh, you know, we do so much better. Look at you. We come here to your own country and we succeed." Because let's not talk about Africa, what's going on in Africa, and how we have Asian people completely taken over.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that's another conversation for another day, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like why Africans can come to America and do so well is because they have that drive. They're hungry. They're coming here. They don't have any other choice. Failure is not an option, right? They have to go back home. We have to worry about sending money back home. We got to provide for other people. It's not just us, it's us and our whole family, us and 50 others that we have to do it for. So I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like Africans, when they come here, they're just so much more hungry than African American people who were born here all their lives. And then also the messaging that African American people a lot of times receive, you know, they're told they're not good enough, they can't do it. So sometimes I feel like a lot of times African American people don't even try. And, you know, stop me if I'm wrong or, you know, correct me. But I feel like sometimes I feel like there's a lack of effort because they feel like because they're Black or because, you know, the cards are stacked against them, they won't succeed. Whereas an African person, I guess they know about the racism, but they haven't been indoctrinated in it in the same way. Even the Americo-Liberian people, yeah, they got the slavery back end, but they've been able to go to Africa and they haven't gotten all the other discrimination, all the other stuff that came with staying in America, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of times African American people, they just don't go for those huge opportunities that Africans feel like they can go for, because African people, they're like, listen, I can do it all. Like, nothing's stopping me. What's stopping me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they just go for it, and they're hungry.
Let me ask you. Now that you've gotten older, and when I look at your YouTube channel, I would assume that you are an African American like anybody else. I mean, like just the things you talk about.
Yeah.
It seems like you would definitely just be in our culture. Do you feel closer to the African community? Do you feel closer to the African American community? And if so, what has changed since then, if it has changed?
That's really hard for me. I felt like when I was younger, I definitely felt closer to the African American community because it was more so wanting to fit in. It was more so wanting to like fit in, be accepted, because as a child you're still trying to figure out where you fall in, right? Like who your people are. So I felt like I would try to like put myself in these spaces and not embrace my culture in the way that I should have, because I wanted to fit in, right? So now as I've actually gotten older, I've actually surrounded myself with more African people. I know it's typically like the opposite, but I've surrounded myself with more African people, more African culture. I haven't went back yet, but I definitely want to make that trip back to Africa and everything because my grandma's moving back. So I want to go back with her and just stay for a little bit and just see what's going on. And yeah, so I feel like because of that, I'm now closer to my African side, but I was raised in America. I was raised amongst majority African American people. So that has influenced me a whole lot. And I would be lying if I said that's not like majority of my influence with the African American culture.
I was recently, I don't know if you know this, I was living in Uganda for
Oh, wow. Okay.
for like 11 months.
Nice.
During the pandemic.
How did you like that?
It was great. It was great. And I got a chance to, maybe understand a lot more things about, and I'm just using Uganda as an example because I haven't been all over Africa, but some of the things that, maybe that I might have thought about that I, didn't, kind of had issues with, I kind of am more understanding now about certain things. And I'm asking that to say this. What do you think that African Americans and the African community, even those that are in the United States or those abroad, how do we bridge that gap to, understand each other and try to, not saying that we all gotta, be like the, one big happy family all the time, because obviously, that might not be the case. And shout out to African United Force, you said that too. But what can we do as a Black community in America that, or even abroad, that we can kind of bridge the gap to, maybe understand one another and see where it goes from there?
Yeah. I feel like number one, we need to be having these type of conversations where we do speak on our experiences and we listen to it from both perspectives, and we're able to like compare, contrast, and see where a lot of the commonalities are, right? So we can focus on working on those issues first, because obviously those are the biggest issues if they keep reoccurring and coming up, right? So I feel like that's number one. Number two, I also feel like we have to take pride in the fact that we aren't just this monolithic group of people. Like, we are so different. We are so diverse. We are an entire diaspora, right? So I feel like individuality doesn't mean diversity. Doesn't mean like, what am I trying to say? It doesn't mean not diversity, but it doesn't mean that there has to be a division. So just because you're African American and you can take pride in your culture and in certain things that might make you different from me, doesn't mean that I have to bash you or I have to feel a certain way about that, because I'm African and I can also take pride and solace with other African people, and I can relate to them a little bit better because they are also African. So I feel like we have to understand that we can have individual groups within the Black community, and that doesn't mean that we have to be at odds. But what we do need to have is we need to have a collective understanding, and we need to have an understanding of how to respect each other, right? How to understand that we are different. We are coming from different perspectives, different cultures, but we're not going to cross certain lines, certain boundaries. We're not going to disrespect each other in certain ways. And I feel like once we get that baseline level of respect, which we don't have, right? Because you can't do anything without respect. Once we get that baseline level of respect, then we can actually start having conversations and start working on the problems.
Wow. You know what? And I definitely agree. I won't take up too much of your time, but I do see that, you know, your YouTube channel is growing. For those people who would be interested in coming to Chris Logic and checking out the content, what would they expect to see from the Chris Logic YouTube channel?
Well, from the Chris Logic YouTube channel, like I said, it's definitely a safe space for Black politics, Black economics, Black discussions, Black dating advice, anything Black celebrity commentary. So you're just going to see a lot of Black issues and Black subjects on my channel, number one. Number two, you're also going to be speaking from a young Black female perspective, right? I'm going to be speaking on, you know, some of the issues that I see in the Black male community, as well as some of the issues that I see in the Black female community, to kind of keep the conversation balanced. But it is going to be a very Black female positive space.
All right. So guys, make sure you go to the first comment pinned to the top and, you know, check her out, subscribe to her, hit the bell. I definitely thank her for coming on. Do you have an Instagram or anything that you want to promote?
Definitely. Go follow me on Instagram. It's Crystal Bell 101. That's spelled CrystalBell 101. That's my Instagram. I guess you can follow me on Facebook, Crystal Bell Smith. Yeah, and then follow me on YouTube, Chris Logic, spelled Crys Logic, CrysLogic. That's it. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, again, thank you so much for checking out the channel. Go to the first comment pinned to the top. You will find all the information there. And as you guys know, keep it real. King Ganda forever. We are out.